So Apex Legends is a game that has become quite the sensation online. A hero shooter battle royale that has managed to consistently pull more Twitch viewers than Fortnite, peaking at over 665,000 viewers. But this game had no PR, no hype mill before it launched. People saw Respawn had a new shooter, tried it, experienced its merits, and quickly fell in love. But why is Apex Legends such a fun multiplayer shooter experience? Well, I'm JinJinx.
And I'm Tuna.
And we're the Monster Hunter? Apex math guys? Well, what we want to call ourselves doesn't really matter. What does matter is that I have been taking a break from Monster Hunter World to play other games. Apex Legends has been a big one that I've been sinking a lot of time into. But Tuna and I aren't the type to jump into the next big game because dara bills! We've never even touched Fortnite and are known for our Monster Hunter World content, which frankly doesn't have the biggest audience anyway.
Which means that Apex must have some merits that have kept us and hundreds of thousands of viewers on Twitch hooked to the experience. So let's cover these merits because there's a lot the multiplayer gaming industry can learn from Apex's unexpected level of success. My personal favorite thing that it does right is the solo queue experience. Most of the time. There's nothing more frustrating than being locked into a match that you know won't go well. In games like League of Legends, matches can go on for 20 minutes or more without even the ability to leave. And even after the ability to forfeit becomes available, sometimes you're held hostage by a duo that either thinks they're heroes or are trolling.
In Apex Legends, the moment that you realize your team is bad at fighting, you lose because your squad just got wiped. And you're also able to leverage things in your favor for finding out if your teammates are trash or not very quickly. What I like to do is I either make sure we drop into a very contested area or right next to it so we can rotate into quickly after gearing up. This means that the first fight happens either 10 seconds or 2 minutes into the run at most. And if we lose, well, GG, re-queue. You don't have to drudge through for another 20 minutes praying that it'll be over sooner rather than later. Another reason that the solo queue feels so good compared to other games is that you feel less helpless compared to other competitive games.
In some games, a sense of teamwork feels good. There's nothing more satisfying than taking your squad to the victory screen in Battlefield. But when it's taken to the extreme, you're often left feeling like what you do doesn't matter. For example, in Overwatch, there's an overwhelming sense of helplessness. As a player, you can do everything right and still lose because some of the team's performance is lacking. It's entirely possible to lose a match with an aimbotting Widowmaker on your team just because the team isn't coordinating. This leaves the player unsatisfied and not sure how to improve.
Overwatch coaches and YouTubers often talk about adding more value, but simply trying to add maximum value and praying that your team can win from it isn't engaging gameplay. It's generally just a recipe for tilting and making you feel helpless. When Overwatch is at its best, when you have a 6-person group coordinating, making plays together, doing everything in sync, it is amazing. But the reality is that is maybe 30% at most, generally like 10% of your games. That is just not a good recipe for good gameplay, and just in general for a fun experience. And that's even worse for a filthy Symmetra main like myself, where I can spend 80% of the game on fire and still be told by my teammates I'm throwing and need to switch to a different hero. But enough trashing on Overwatch, let's keep talking about Apex. Another nice thing about Apex is that even if you have bad aim like I do, you can still leverage certain advantages to actually still win fights. Simply feeding positional information to your team, which is really easy to do on Apex, more on that in a second, or taking a positional advantage either by flanking or taking high ground in order to draw attention away from your teammates, focusing on light machine gun suppressing fire or grenade spam. There's just a lot of things you can do in a fight to let your carry players carry you harder. I personally like playing either Wraith or Pathfinder and using either high ground or flanking routes in order to draw enemy attention. Even if I cannot get a kill, I will be splitting their attention so my carry players can actually land good shots. The fact that it is a hero shooter, but unlike in a game like Overwatch or League of Legends, the abilities are not direct kill abilities, they're tactical abilities, means that I can leverage tactical advantages to let my carry players carry me harder. Another thing is that the time to kill is very high in Apex compared to most shooters. This means that you can simply choose not to take fights. If you realize they're landing way more shots than you are, you can just run away. And the gunfire will draw other teams to the area, meaning if your retreat is smart, you can actually pincer them using it. Another reason you don't feel that helpless is because rezzing exists in the game. This means that hero plays, like hiding and then grabbing both of your teammates' banners, legging it to a faraway respawn point so that you can safely respawn and then re-gear up, is a completely possible thing. I have easily had over 10 games won because someone did this hero play. And finally, the carry potential is real. 1v3ing an entire team is entirely possible. And you don't have to be a mechanical aim god to pull this off either. I've 1v3 teams plenty and I am terrible at aiming. Sometimes it just takes some smart grenade play, or some very smart flanking and reflanking, or maybe you just need to have a gold backpack so you can heal faster. Or maybe you just need a really damn good Gibraltar ult, but it is possible is the point. Now, another big aspect that makes a solo queue experience so good, and frankly is probably the biggest reason it feels so good, is that the communication and teamwork naturally in the game is so good. And the best part about it is you don't even need mics.
Long story short, the ping system is revolutionary. We won't touch on it too much because everyone and their friend's dog has spoken about it. That said, competitors have already taken notice and are copying it entirely. Fortnite.
The contextual ping system is just simply phenomenal, and frankly almost every multiplayer game could use a ping system similar to it. But another thing that Apex Legends does so well that frankly a lot of other games do as well for naturally good communication is the character voiceover lines. Anytime you are getting shot at, you are reloading, you are using abilities, or even just fairly spread apart on the map, your character says something about it, and your teammates hear it. That is huge. While a lot of people still say "on me" when they're being shot at by enemies, you don't even actually have to because your character will say, "Hey, I'm being shot at right now, guys. Help, please." This is such an easy thing to put into a video game that just makes the natural communication experience so much more seamless. I mean, a lot of video games like Monster Hunter World have this, but they have it in text prompts instead of voice prompts. And in 99% of video games, paying attention to the visuals is way more important than the audio. In Monster Hunter World, you have to pay attention to what the monster's animations are if you ever want to block, dodge, or counter something. This naturally means you don't want to switch your focus to something on the side of your screen to read the little text box. Alright, so next reason why the communication and teamwork feel so natural in Apex Legends is because you have 3-man squads. 3 really is the magic number when it comes to these kind of squad-based games in my opinion. The reason is, if you have 4 people, you can split into 2 squads of 2. If you have 5 people, you can split into a squad of 2 and a squad of 3. And the natural fact is that if you have another person with you in your little split group, you feel safer. Which means that even if tactically it's a terrible idea for you to do that, you will feel safe doing it because you have a buddy with you. With a 3-person group, you cannot split into 2 groups of 2. You either have to stick together as 3, or you have to be a team of 2 and a solo person. Being the solo person is naturally more scary and people will avoid it on instincts. And the people who do go on those solo missions will generally have the skills to back it up. Now, this doesn't mean that people will never int, but it does make it happen a lot less often just by the simple nature of having 3-man squads. This also means that it's naturally easier to have a shot caller. 1 person out of 3 is a lot more likely to be listened to than 1 person out of 6, 5, 4 people in a random environment. And as I am generally a more tactically minded as opposed to mechanically skilled player, I really enjoy this fact. It also does mean that when you do actually have comms active, it is a lot less messy. In Overwatch, having 6 people in comms all the time can get super messy unless people are being intentionally clean about comms. And as a final note, it is just so much easier to get a 3-stack of friends to play with than a 6-stack or a 5-stack in different games. And when you are playing with friends, it's a lot easier to identify what went wrong, who can do better, who did a good job, all of those different factors with 3 people. Compare this to trying to analyze a team fight or the entire game with a 6-stack in Overwatch. Generally speaking, you have to actually watch the VOD if you want to figure out what exactly went wrong in that team fight and who needs to fix their behavior, which in general just makes improvement a lot more difficult. Alright, another big reason why Apex Legends solo queue feels so much better than other games is that team comp is not make or break. In games like League of Legends, or even more so in Overwatch, if your team comp is bad, you lose 80% of the time. And you're stuck in that bad game for 20 to 40 minutes in a competitive game. And just a quick little PSA for all of you Overwatch players out there, a Symmetra does not equal a bad team comp. But now the reason why an Apex team comp is not make or break is because abilities matter, but only tactically. None of the abilities in the game are really damaging or killing abilities, except maybe Gibraltar/Caustic/Bangalore ults. But realistically, those are zoning tools, because if a player is caught in any of those, they just run the fuck away. Outside of the very rare Lucky or 9000 IQ plays, those ults all work by removing positional advantages from a team or putting them at a positional disadvantage. Respawn really means it when they call the active abilities tactical abilities. They can give you a tactical advantage, but they don't directly kill things. If you don't use them well or intelligently, you can in fact be hurting yourself or your team instead of the enemies. Another point on that is the abilities in the game are extremely well balanced in terms of counterplay or disadvantages.
Every ability has counterplay or disadvantages to it, unless it's just a weaker ability in general. Nothing is broken without some way to play around it. Let's cover a few examples.
So Bangalore's smoke blocks yours and teammates' line of sight too. And if you hear the enemy Bloodhound ult and you smoke over your team, you're basically murdering them. Her ult is a zoning tool because it's easy to run out of and also slows your team and actually damages the Bangalore. Let's get this straight though, her passive is straight up overpowered. But it is on a few second cooldown, which means it has counterplay. If you even shoot around her when she's behind cover, you'll trigger the passive, wait a few seconds, and you can go in and you'll be on even footing. Now, Wraith's tactical ability makes her invulnerable, but she can't see enemies, can't open doors, and enemies can see your movement trail pretty easily. This means that if you use it to run at an enemy and they can see your trail, then that means that you just gave them an advantage. Because they will know where you are and you won't know where they are as soon as you get out, and there's about a half-second delay before you can use your gun after getting out of it, so just don't Wraith at people. And her ult can be used by enemies, so when you use it poorly, you're basically just giving the enemy free flanking routes. We're considering doing a video covering all of these in the future. Let us know what you think in the comments. So, what can other games learn from Apex Legends to have more fun multiplayer?
Making the game fun without comms should be a good first step. Communication should make it better, of course, but there should still be a fun experience at the base without it. Most competitive games feel terrible without verbal communication. There are many examples, but one personal one I can think of would be in League of Legends, if instead of a "I'm on my way" ping, I had a "I'm on my way in 30 seconds" ping. That would help someone like me, who was a jungle and roaming support main, to say, "Hey, I'm coming to your lane, just don't do anything stupid until 30 seconds.
In Overwatch, being able to call out which target you are aiming for is such a huge advantage that several streamers I have watched have identified it as the main reason they made it into Diamond or higher. Solving this can literally be as simple as giving decent automatic or contextual voice lines to the teammates, or a simple ping system that covers the actual important things you want to communicate to teammates. It doesn't even have to be as in-depth as Apex's, but being able to identify a flanker without comms, or even just indicate, "Hey, now we push," or giving the flanker the ability to say, "Hey, I'm in position," is huge. Simple things like this go a huge way to making a game feel so much better. And as a side benefit, this makes comms less cluttered in games with large groups on each team. Another thing that is just so huge and so many companies do so wrong is balancing counterplay better. And making counterplay a thing you can generally do outside of which character you pick, especially if you're locked into that character choice for 20 plus minutes.
Hard counters are unhealthy for any competitive game. It creates a strongly dualistic nature to the game. If you pick into a hard counter, you get screwed and you feel terrible. If you are the hard counter, then that razor's edge competitive feeling of beating someone from outplaying them is lost. Either way, the experience is worse off for it.
Respawn actually overbalanced abilities in my opinion. I don't think this is a bad thing though. Abilities should have to be used intelligently and in the proper context to convey advantages. They shouldn't just be a "I press button, I win now, yes" Overwatch ults. We recognize this is a very difficult thing to do, but it is something that I feel like any multiplayer and especially competitive game should focus on. Another big thing is just to minimize bad games' lengths to make it just less painful. This can be a harder one to balance because you don't want early leaving to be unpunished or considered okay. Someone leaving the game early really just ruins the whole game experience for everyone involved. But really, just a simple surrender system that you can use fairly early on will do wonders.
The nature of competitive squad-based games is that if you lose a person, it's nearly impossible to win. But it's equally as bad if someone just gives up. Often, being able to surrender early on is better than trying to drag one lost soul through a 30-minute game.
And finally, just make individual impact feel more impactful. This is admittedly extremely difficult to balance without having too much carry potential in the game. One thing is to simply make abilities higher skill ceilings so they have a stronger impact when used in smart situations. It's understandable when a character has a low skill floor so newer or less skilled players can use them effectively. But a low skill floor doesn't mean it can't also have a high skill ceiling. A perfect example of this is Winston in Overwatch. And he has a wonderfully low skill floor. His kit is super easy to use, but getting the maximum effect out of that is very difficult and a very high skill ceiling. His ult is a perfect example of this. It makes him super tanky and super mobile so you can very easily contest objectives with it. And on the right maps or in the right locations, you can easily get environmental kills with it without having too much time invested in mastering the ability. But top level Winston players who have mastered the use of the ult mechanically are able to get more kills out of it than a Genji blade. That is a perfect example of a low skill floor ability with a juicy high skill ceiling. Very nice. Now, low skill ceiling characters become an issue because when they are always consistently moderate, they don't have enough room to make plays. And when they are always consistently good, they don't have strong counterplay. Alright, that about does it, guys.
We appreciate it if you stuck around. Again, we're trying some new things. We're gonna give our best shot with this, but let us know what we can improve on. If you liked or disliked it, let us know. And if you have a comment, let us know how we can improve. Have you been playing Apex Legends? If so, what legends are you liking, and what content would you like to see from us?
We do have a Patreon with some juicy new tiers. And thank you to Ven, Russell Alicon, Broken Leah, Yoshi Cho, John Cohen, Ken Alvarez, Robin, Bram Orsel, Lightweight, Skylar Yang, Lupin, Mongus, Lord Sidone, and Kim Jong-poon.
And everyone else who's been supporting us on Patreon. Your support allows content like this to be created. We do have an Apex room in our Discord if you're looking for somebody to squad up with. And you can check me out on Twitch where I stream every day. I'm currently doing a playthrough of Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3. We've got some new content coming out soon, so be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Until then, happy fragging fraggers? I'm gonna have to work on that. Bye!